Imagine you're walking down the sidewalk. You're not driving, you're not causing a disturbance, you're simply heading to work, walking your dog, or grabbing coffee. Then suddenly, a police officer steps toward you. Hey, can I see your ID? Right there, most people think the encounter is about identification. It's not. The real decision point has nothing to do with your ID. The real decision point is whether you immediately find out if the encounter is voluntary or not, because the officer hasn't yet decided whether this will be a casual conversation, a detention, or an investigation. And what you do in the next few seconds often determines where the encounter goes. That's the trap. If knowing your rights matters to you, subscribe now, share this with someone who needs it, and drop your opinion below. Most people hear, "Can I see your ID?" and instantly reach for their wallet. Others do the opposite. They get angry. "What did I do? I know my rights. You can't stop me." Both reactions create problems because neither one answers the most important question. Are you being detained? Listen to how these encounters usually happen. Officer: Hey, can I see your ID? Person: Why? Officer: Just need to know who I'm talking to. Person: I didn't do anything wrong. Officer: So you're refusing? Now the conversation is moving in a direction neither side wanted. Notice what happened. The officer asked for identification. The citizen immediately started arguing. The original question is no longer the focus. Now the focus is the person's behavior. That's where many encounters begin escalating. Why do officers ask for ID in the first place? Sometimes they're investigating a specific complaint. Sometimes they're looking for a suspect description. Sometimes they're checking whether someone has outstanding warrants. Sometimes they're simply trying to identify the people they're speaking with. Identification is often one of the fastest ways for officers to gather information and determine whether further investigation is necessary. That's why the request happens so frequently. But here's the critical issue. Not every police contact is a detention, and that's where the decision point appears. The moment the officer asks for ID is not the decision point. The decision point comes immediately afterward. It's the moment you determine whether you're free to leave. Most people never ask. Instead, they either comply automatically or start arguing automatically. Both reactions skip the most important step, finding out what kind of encounter you're actually in. Here's the wrong response. Officer: Can I see your ID? Person: No, I know my rights. Officer: Why are you refusing? Person: Because I don't have to. Officer: Stay right here. Now tension is building. The conversation becomes about resistance instead of clarity. Here's another common mistake. Officer: Can I see your ID? Person: Sure. Officer takes ID, runs information, asks more questions, requests additional information. What started as a brief encounter may become much longer. Again, the issue isn't whether the person eventually provides identification. The issue is that they never established what kind of encounter they were in. Now let's look at the decision point. Officer: Can I see your ID? Person: Am I being detained? That's it. That's the entire decision point. Not an argument, not a lecture, not a refusal. Just a question. Am I being detained? Repeat that. Am I being detained? Because that question forces clarification. The officer now has to decide whether this is a voluntary encounter or a detention. Watch how differently the conversation can unfold. Officer: Can I see your ID? Person: Am I being detained? Officer: No. Person: Am I free to leave? Officer: Yes. Person: Have a good day, officer. Encounter over. Notice what didn't happen. No argument, no accusations, no confrontation, no legal lecture, just clarification. Now consider the other possibility. Officer: Can I see your ID? Person: Am I being detained? Officer: Yes. Now the encounter has changed. At least now everyone understands the situation. The officer is no longer presenting this as a voluntary contact. The officer is asserting authority to detain. That clarification matters because until you know whether you're being detained, you don't know what stage of the encounter you're actually in. That's why "am I being detained" is the phrase to remember. Not because it's magic, not because it automatically ends encounters, but because it identifies the decision point. And once the decision point is identified, everything becomes clearer. Now let's talk about what usually happens next. Many officers will respond with follow-up questions. Officer, why are you asking? Officer, what's the problem? Officer, why don't you just show me your ID? These questions often encourage people to start explaining, and that's where people get pulled into long conversations. Instead, stay focused. Officer, why are you asking? Person, I'm trying to determine whether I'm being detained. Officer, why not just identify yourself? Person, am I being detained? Notice how the conversation stays centered on the decision point, not emotions, not opinions, not arguments, just clarification. Some officers may apply pressure. Officer, if you've done nothing wrong, why not cooperate? Many people immediately start defending themselves. That's a mistake. The issue isn't proving innocence. The issue is determining the nature of the encounter. So return to the same question. Am I being detained? Simple, calm, professional. Let's briefly discuss the legal foundation. Under the Fourth Amendment, police interactions generally fall into different categories. Some encounters are voluntary. Others are detentions supported by reasonable suspicion. The reason this distinction matters is that voluntary encounters and detentions operate under different rules. The Supreme Court has repeatedly emphasized that not every interaction with police automatically becomes a detention. That's why identifying which type of encounter you're experiencing is so important. You don't need to memorize court cases. You don't need a law degree. You just need to recognize the decision point. And the decision point occurs the moment the officer asks for identification before you've established whether you're free to leave. That's the trap. The trap isn't the ID itself. The trap is skipping the clarification step. Most people either comply immediately or argue immediately. The smarter approach is finding out exactly where you stand. So let's review. The trap is assuming every police contact is automatically a detention. The decision point occurs when the officer asks for identification before you've established whether you're free to leave. The exact phrase is, "Am I being detained?" Remember it. Use it calmly. Use it professionally. Use it before the encounter starts moving in a direction you don't understand. Because the smartest drivers aren't the ones who talk the most. They're the ones who recognize the decision point before the officer does.